Welcome, everyone, to the 30-minute Midas touch from beautiful Dyersburg, Tennessee at the Herb Welsh Wrestleplex. Now, here is, pound for pound and inch for inch, the best of the best in professional wrestling today. A wrestling genius worth his weight in gold. The Golden Boy, Greg Anthony.
Welcome, everybody, to the 30-minute Midas touch. I am your host, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony. And with me, as always, is Mr. Wrestlemania.
Oh!
Mark Tipton.
Wait a minute. You're going to... I'm going to be assaulted on the internet for sure now. That title is exclusively reserved for the HBK Shawn Michaels. That is... He's got the DVD to prove it and everything.
Blasphemy, right? Blasphemy.
Yeah, I certainly do not in any way compare myself to individuals like that, although I do appreciate the accolade, as always. But bringing that up, that leads us right to where we wanted to go with this edition of the 30-minute Midas Touch podcast. As you all know, this is a certain time of the year for those of us who are professional wrestling fans. This is Wrestlemania season. The time's upon us, and what we would like to do is just kind of look at what we have at this moment, what we know is coming as a part of the two-day extravaganza, the showcase of the Immortals, all those things that WrestleMania is. And it is WrestleMania 37. For those of you interested, it is WrestleMania 37, and it will hail from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay. Home of the Buccaneers, and we're all excited, and they will have, what I'm personally excited for is there will be fans in attendance. As someone who is a fan of attending live events, this is something that thrills me. I want to see live audience. The video, I understand they're doing the best they can with the video equipment, but having a live audience, I think that's the way professional wrestling is designed to be presented, and having those people there just thrills me to death. With that being said, I suppose one place I'd like to start, if we could, is let's just start right at one of the big matches that, the WWE Championship. The championship of the company that, the history and tradition of the company relies on. And as it stands now, and I have no reason to believe this is going to change, right now it is the champion, the almighty Bobby Lashley, going against the Scottish Warrior, Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of Drew McIntyre. Like, even when he was the chosen one, back in the early, because that was a big deal when Vince McMahon came out on television and said, "Hey, you've never seen this guy before, but one day he's going to be a world champion." That was the ultimate rub, right? And although that didn't come to fruition right then and there, he worked very hard, got released, went on the independent circuit, and just tore the house down, went to every possible company he could go to, won their title, worked on top, and really established himself as one of the best workers in the business. I ran into him in WrestleCade, and he was kind of with a group of people, and I kind of went up, just shook his hand right quick and gave him my card. This is when we were part of the NWA. And after he got done with those people, he came and found me and was like, "Hey, I consider myself like the only traveling world champion left. I'd love to do some business with the NWA." I said, "Well, hopefully we can get that work out." Obviously, nothing ever came of it, but that was probably about the time he was fixing to go back, too, I think. It was a couple months later. But I'm excited for this match just because, I like Drew, and I'm not a huge fan of Bobby Lashley. Like, I like Bobby Lashley, but to me, he's just really bland. And even though with the MVP and the Hurt Business, that's been really good for everybody involved, that's one of the cases where the group is stronger than the individuals. Because everyone together comes out better than they all would be individually. You understand? And I think and MVP's done a really good job at kind of, I think, spearheading that kind of thing. I don't think he's necessarily like a long-term world heavyweight champion, Bobby Lashley, but, obviously he's good for a role such as this where he's going to be champion for 6 weeks or whatever it is and then drop it back to Drew, hopefully. So I'm excited because I know it's going to be hard-hitting. They're both very big, athletic guys. I'm always talking about I want heavyweights to be heavyweights. Well, by God, these guys are heavyweights.
Yes, and they certainly act accordingly as I watch their matches. And really, I suppose you could say that there is a level of similarity between the two. Bobby Lashley also had experience in the WWE, then left for a time period and went to other places. Certainly tried to better himself and then has made his way back. I do understand what you're saying because just as a fan, I think the teaming up with MVP to me really elevated him because it was something, human beings all have strengths and weaknesses. And MVP helps Bobby Lashley be a more entertaining product, I would say. Is that fair?
Yeah. Like when Lashley first came into WWE, of course, he was supposed to be like, oh, this is the African American version of Brock Lesnar. But there's only one Brock Lesnar. You understand? I mean, as many credentials as he had amateur wrestling wise, it wasn't the same as Brock Lesnar, and nor did he. I don't think he took as quickly to professional wrestling as Brock Lesnar did. So, but that's what they tried to represent him as this new version of Lesnar, because Lesnar had left at that time to go do football, but then UFC and all that kind of stuff. So they were trying to fill that void. Well, we can fill it with this guy. Whatever, that kind of thing. Then when he gets to TNA, if I remember this correctly, he got to TNA and they tried to make a big deal about it. And then 4 weeks later, Hogan came in and kind of stole all the thunder he would possibly have and coming in. I mean, who's going to care about Bobby Lashley coming in when Hulk Hogan's right behind you? So that's one issue. But he went out and he had runs as Impact heavyweight champion and things like that. And I didn't watch a lot of that stuff, but I heard he did really well and started to mature more in that role.
All right. Well, yeah, I will say, just watch him in the ring. Yeah, we talk about things being credible. Bobby Lashley is certainly that, and so I do look forward to that match between these two true heavyweights. One subject I would like to bring up, and this is something that is from my point of view, somewhat unfortunately traditional aspect of WrestleMania, and that is the celebrity involvement. You can go back through the Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow, Money Mayweather, and The Big Show. Some have been better than others, but there have routinely been at WrestleMania some form of celebrity involvement. This year, no exception, we have a scheduled match which features The Miz taking on hip-hop artist Bad Bunny.
So, Vince McMahon has this weird obsession with trying to make wrestling more mainstream, right? That's been his shtick from day one. He didn't want wrestling to be a mom and pop, local yokel kind of thing anymore, and he wanted it to be as mainstream could be. So the way that he thought about doing that was, well, let's involve these celebrities that are mainstream, and they'll give us the rub on our product. And yes, that kind of helped a little bit here and there, but I liked it because celebrities used to be involved in professional wrestling, but they were involved because they wanted to be a part of professional wrestling. You know what I mean? It wasn't that we needed them to help get over. It was they actually, oh, this is really cool. This is a really cool thing, and I want to be a part of it. So like Muhammad Ali, for instance, I know he was a part of the first WrestleMania, but he was a part of stuff in other territories, wrestling-wise before that. And they brought him in because he was obviously a big star, but obviously a big athlete, but he understood the athleticism of professional wrestling, that kind of thing. So with the Bad Bunny thing, obviously your expectations are going to be very low for this. It's much easier to train somebody for one match than it is to train somebody complete. So they're going to train him for this one match and physically him do this one match. Step by step, 1, 2, 3, paint by numbers kind of thing. And me, that's not the way that I want professional wrestling to work. But in this scenario, that's the only way you can make this work because there's no way to teach him enough in the time period to where he would be seasoned enough to go have a WrestleMania match of all things. I think Miz, obviously, I love Miz. I think he's one of the guys that actually has been the only heels in professional wrestling in the last 10, 15 years. I see how he's more or less morphed into like the Chris Jericho kind of role, where Jericho was always doing something with a celebrity. He was always just a featured part of the show, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, well you reminded me of another one there, Chris Jericho and his work with the actor from the wrestler movie whose name just left my mind.
Mickey Rourke.
Thank you so much. And that involvement. I guess my frustration and the thing why I have such a negative view of these things is I feel like you're wasting an opportunity because the celebrity becomes involved in the match. For instance, Damian Priest in the pictures I saw is pictured alongside Bad Bunny. He's been with him routinely. Now, if you switch their positions and say Damian Priest is representing Bad Bunny in this and Bad Bunny's at ringside, and even have him get involved in some fashion, that certainly would not bother me near to the degree to I see a young talent who I'm interested in seeing in Damian Priest. He's someone who has caught my attention. And now I see he's going to be standing aside while Bad Bunny has a match at WrestleMania.
Yeah. Well, it also creates it also, in the people's minds, it makes people think, well, anybody can do this. You know what I mean? Like, there's, in no other sport is there, a celebrity that just happens to wander on an NBA team. You know what I mean? Oh, we're gonna sign Justin Timberlake to a 10-day contract so he can live out his dream to play in the NBA. You see what I'm saying? Like, that just doesn't happen because, well, they're not NBA players. They're celebrities. And I understand wrestling's different, and, obviously we're, like we talk about, we're predetermined and we're this and we're that. But at the same time, we're still an athletic-based thing, and even if your product is that, you're still trying to make people believe in what you're doing. Is it believable for someone who's never been in any kind of combat sport at all to just 3 weeks before decide I'm going to get into a combat fight? It just, that kind of thing. Let's use a little bit of common sense. I like the Damian Priest wrestling for him idea much, much better.
All right. Well, I want to move on from that. I don't want to drone on that and linger on it too long. But there's one match I have some mixed feelings about, and I'll say right off the top, the Raw Tag Team Championship. It is going to be involving the champions, the New Day. Obviously, I believe they're 11-time champions now. In this case, they are a combination of Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Big E is currently doing his own thing on SmackDown. But they're taking on the tag team, and this is where one of the people, I would like to reveal my biases as much as possible. AJ Styles is one of my biases. AJ Styles and his bodyguard, Omos, and I hope I'm saying that right. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. I hear it say announced almost Amos. But anyway, for those of you that have seen him, he is indeed an imposing physical presence at ringside.
He would be considered ginormous.
Yes. My hesitation is that I am a long-time fan of tag team wrestling. I think it plays an important role in the history of professional wrestling, and I think it adds a lot to the product. When I watch, for instance, I watch a pay-per-view and I see 6, 7, 8 matches, whatever it happens to be. Having that difference and the dynamics of a tag team match, I think it adds a lot. And when I watch WWE, I often see tag team wrestling, in my opinion, being minimized or kind of cast to the side. And here we have two people never in a ring anywhere as a tag team fighting for the Raw Championship.
Yeah, and to your point, not only do they minimize it, but they don't actually do tag team wrestling either. It basically ends up just being 4 singles guys getting their shit in. You understand? Because and this is for the fans out there listening too, when you watch WrestleMania and you watch these tag matches, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to count how many minutes after they make a tag that all 4 men are in the ring. You understand? Because at the hot tag, at the end of the match, there's going to be a hot tag, and they're all going to be in there, and no one's going to the ref ain't going to give a shit about tags for the next 4 or 5 minutes, and that's not the way tag team wrestling works. Like, it should always be, the referee is very, very in tune with, hey, no, you need to get out, this person, and, they'll do that every once in a while, but for the most part, he's going to stand in the corner and let them get all their spots in, and then he's going to, oh, yeah, by the way, you need to get in the, it just doesn't make any sense. It just kills all the credibility for a tag team match itself.
All right. I do want to say I'm also a big New Day fan. I've got my fair of T-shirts. I do fully admit, and I didn't get the unicorn horn or anything like that, but I
Did you?
but I
Did
I
you
was
buy the pancakes when he?
no,
was,
I did not buy the pancakes. I wanted a
Oh, I was so mad about that.
now the box of Bootios, but
I was so mad about Kofi when he was champion. Going out there tossing. It was like, I remember when Thez did that. That was great. Remember?
right.
It just to me it diminished the world title and himself really by doing. I know then that's their shtick, but that's another thing too. It's like when the New Day started. I'm sure you remember this. When the New Day started, they were supposed to be like a militant, almost like a Nation of Domination-esque kind of, Black Power kind of thing, right? And then that didn't work. So they said they weren't going to sing and dance, and then what they end up doing? Singing and dancing to get over and to cash their money. So,
Well, and to their credit, it worked very well.
yeah. I mean, they obviously they've sold a lot of merch and done a lot of things. I'm not a fan of, I wish it was. I like that kind of stuff, but at the same time, I want it to be more wrestling too.
All right. I certainly will admit I have chanted New Day Rocks on more than one occasion. I guess just for those of you listening, I do want to cite another example. My concern about the state of tag team wrestling. I actually attended a WrestleMania at which Braun Strowman went into the audience and selected I believe it was an 8 or 10-year-old child to serve as his tag team partner, and they became the tag team champions at WrestleMania.
Yeah, that stuff runs up and down me too. I mean, tag team wrestling, unfortunately, and this is WWE's mentality, is like why have two guys together that their contracts are tied together and everything creatively with them is tied together, and there's no movement because, obviously Bubba Ray is more palatable and a better star with Devon with him, right? Why have pairings like that when you can just put two random wrestlers together, and if they have to split up, they have to split up. So yeah, it's been an issue just for years. I mean, years and years and years.
All right. I would like to keep us moving along. There are quite a few announced matches because this is broken over 2 days, and I want to try to get to each subject because there's a lot of these matches that I'm sure the audience would like to hear us talk about. And the next one kind of delves back into delves back into a subject we've dealt with before in a tangential way. Excuse me there. A little bit political here because we have Shane McMahon involved in a match at WrestleMania once again. This time he's going up against Braun Strowman.
Yeah, like when Shane used to wrestle back in the 90s, and he was this young kid, and he was like in the situation with Tess where he was trying to stick up for his sister, that kind of thing. Like that stuff to me made a lot more sense, and he wrestled more like I'm just a kid trying to be a wrestler, and I'm getting my ass kicked, kind of thing. And over the years, somehow that's morphed into Shane McMahon is legitimately a badass now in WWE's eyes. So, he goes out there and throws some of the worst punches in professional wrestling history, but everyone has to sell it because guess what? His last name is McMahon. You know what I mean? And I understand that he's taken, Taekwondo or, whatever, kickboxing or whatever, Muay Thai, whatever it may be. I understand he's done a lot of that kind of stuff, but that doesn't translate to professional wrestling, So I'm not a fan of his recent stuff. I was more of a fan of, like I said, that Kurt Angle match at King of the Ring years ago. That was amazing. And that's exactly the way that Shane McMahon should be involved in professional wrestling. But, he's 50, or close to it, and now he's wrestling Braun Strowman. I mean, if Braun beats him, okay, but then if Shane beats Braun, exactly, what could happen?
The monster among men.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how much of a monster will he be after he lays down for the McMahon?
I certainly hope it doesn't go that way because you hit up on my problem. Braun Strowman is, a juggernaut. They have had him plow through all sorts of people. He's, nearly unstoppable. And yet we're going to have, Shane McMahon somehow put on a competitive match with him. I certainly enjoyed Shane McMahon. To me, he was always known for you were waiting on what's he going to jump off of this time. That's kind of what he was known for. Now, you did mention that Kurt Angle match, which that was a tremendous, and I want to give a lot of credit to Kurt Angle, and because that match was tremendous, and there's no denying that. I'm trying to think. Well, we have recently discussed the concept of the cinematic match, and this next contest is something that certainly has its roots in cinematic aspects. It's very built upon cinematics. A few that essentially started with one Randy Orton setting fire to Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone can guess what my thought process is on this. Obviously, I'm not a fan of any of this at all. And in this past pay-per-view, when Randy Orton and Alexa Bliss had their quote-unquote match, I'm using quotation fingers because it wasn't actually a match, because it was more like you just mimed. There was more like I Dream a Genie on crack. But like it was just so bad. And like I said, it's not necessarily that it's bad from a wrestling aspect, and it's embarrassing from a wrestling aspect, but it's even embarrassing just from an entertainment or movie aspect. Like, it's so bad. You understand? Like, on every level. So, I am not and of course, poor Bray Wyatt. I mean, I love this guy to death. He's such a hard worker. He's so creative. He's so talented. And everything he creates gets just mangled. You know what I mean? And like then he has to go and create something new and try to get it over. You know how hard it is to be at that level and try to create something like that over and over again. And like he's still been able to do it, but now this last time it may go down with the Christmas creature as the kind of outfit that he had on, that burnt outfit or whatever it was. I don't know. It's just so bad. I don't know what other adjective to use.
Well, yeah, we have Alexa Bliss somehow magically causing lighting rigging to fall to the floor and spontaneously causing Randy Orton to spit up black blood or something. And I don't think they can involve much of that sort of thing if there's going to be a live audience involved. And I'm certainly thankful I would like to just see these two get into the ring and perform.
Yeah, and I just watched Orton on the Stone Cold Broken Skull thing, and he talked about how in the Edge and Orton match, that was the first one where they did the greatest wrestling match ever, where they said that, hey, we're going to pipe in crowd noise, and they were like, no, don't do it, and it was good for me to hear. At least they don't want to do it. At least they would rather not do it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, here we are, and they're still having to do it. So. I'm just not a fan of cinematic matches. I'm not a fan of that over the top, theatrics for it and things that doesn't make any rhyme or reason sense. You know what I mean? I understand there's been a lot of things over the years that done it. Well, guess what, guys? I don't like any of it. So don't come at me with, well, Undertaker did it in '97. Well, I didn't like that either. So let's stick to wrestling and try to get it over the way it's supposed to be done.
All right, I would like to turn to a match that certainly intrigues me. It involves two performers who have had a real change in direction of their character relatively recently. We mentioned the New Day a few minutes ago when we talked about the tag team that they were doing. Well, that's because they decided to split the New Day after many years of being together as a successful team. Big E, on his own on SmackDown, is going his own direction now. He is the Intercontinental Champion. And he is facing a challenger in Apollo Crews, who has certainly departed from what we have seen from him up to this point. Certainly a heel turn, to use the term, but certainly a drastic departure in the presentation. And I'm interested to see how these two do in a very different circumstance from what we've seen them before.
Yeah, and that's the thing you're talking about. Okay, we're finally going to have a live crowd. You understand? So here's the thing. Even bad matches are going to seem a lot better than they are because there's a live crowd there to react to everything. So everyone's going to have to take that with a grain of salt. You're going to have to look at the match almost completely like deaf-wise without crowd reaction and really look at the match itself and see, nuts and bolts, is it still a good match? You know what I mean? because, like I said, everyone's going to be hyped up. It's going to come across a lot better than anything that's come across in the last year because we haven't had fans in a year. So now that they're going to have 40,000, 45,000, whatever it is, in this arena, it's going to be interesting. And I think this is one of the things where that match, like to me, like I watched some of their stuff not long ago, and they really didn't click very much with each other. You know what I mean? Like, they just kind of felt like they were kind of going through their motions and kind of just doing their own thing. It's hard to explain, but, like, doing their own thing. So I'm interested to see how they pull it together for Mania.
Well, let me ask you this direction. As I'm watching, could what you saw in the ring be an aspect of we've taken them out of their comfort zone, so to speak? Big E has always been a very fun-loving character, very outgoing, and not necessarily a serious, kind of threat in the ring.
Yeah, and the thing with that is, too, like, there's an old saying in wrestling, it's funny, no money. You know what I mean? Like, if you're funny to the point to where people don't believe you're believable, you understand, it hurts your draw and hurts your overall thing. So if Big E's going to be a main event guy, a true main event guy, then he has to get out of the silly, like we're talking about, throwing pancakes, booty-os. You have to get out of that kind of thing. So whether he can do that or not is going to be the true question. All
right. To try to make sure that we allow some time to discuss this, the match that I suppose most interests me, from the way it was really, I guess the interest for me is almost from the way it's put together as much from the match itself that's going to happen. And that is the match for the Universal Championship. We have the Universal Champion, Roman Reigns, who's run as the, with Paul Heyman as the bad guy, the head of the table, so to speak. I have certainly enjoyed. And we have the returning Edge, who I'm certainly glad to have back, winner of the Royal Rumble. But it was made official last night on SmackDown that they have decided to make it a triple threat match and involve Daniel Bryan. And you could kind of see the seeds of this being laid, and then obviously at Fastlane, the less than certain outcome led to this. How do you feel about the way this match was put together?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Like, Roman Reigns versus Edge was a wow factor for me. Like, when I heard, okay, that's where we're going, I want to see that match. Like, I want to see those two guys. Because Edge, we've talked about it before, Edge is just, he's a genius. Like, the way that he puts things together and the way that he can kind of mold that story is very rare, and he's very, very good at it. So I was really interested to see him, what he could do creatively with someone like Roman Reigns. Now, granted, I would like to see what he could do with Daniel Bryan too in a one-on-one situation, but now we got him in a triple threat match, and it becomes so forced and so constricted and things like that. So like, to me, like, triple threat, I always want the main event of WrestleMania to be a one-on-one match. That's just me, because I want the two top guys, whoever they may be, I want to see that match. That's the money match. The exception to that, obviously, was Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Benoit, who, yes, I can say on here because this is my own podcast. The way that was beautifully told and put together was amazing. I really like the way they did that. But that is really the only case I've ever really been for a triple threat match in WrestleMania history. So, yeah, I'm very disappointed by the decision to make this a triple threat match. I much rather would have just seen Edge and Roman.
Well, and I guess what really intrigues me is, almost by necessity, it kind of changed the way Edge conducted himself, in the ring and on television. When he came back at the Royal Rumble, was the number one entrant, went to the end and won. That's a very positive, get the fans behind you kind of role. And then on the other hand, we have him taking on a very different tack and, just kind of saying, hey, this was my thing, and Daniel Bryan, you stay out. And Daniel Bryan is, well, as evidenced by the end of SmackDown last night, the chair gets used, and Daniel Bryan is in a very sympathetic role as opposed to Edge now.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like with triple threat matches, you're actually supposed to have 2 heels and a baby. You understand? But like, yes, are there scenarios where there has been different? Of course. But like, to get the most bang for your buck, you want to have 2 heels and 1 baby face. So that 1 baby face is the ultimate underdog, right? Well, now what they've created now is who's the underdog now? You know, exactly. Roman Reigns is the underdog because he's having to put his title on the line, not against Edge, but also against Daniel Bryan. So it muddies the waters on all levels for everything. Like I said, I'm a very black and white, good versus evil, God versus the devil, professional wrestling fan. I want to see it clearly spelled out for me. This is the good guy. This is the bad guy. I need to cheer for this guy. I hate this guy because he has no qualities. He doesn't just do cool moves and I try to buy his T-shirts. Like he's an actual heel, So, and I think Roman's been doing a really good job as a heel. You understand? Like, I really think I always liked Roman Reigns either way, but like, I really think that him and Heyman together have been stellar for sure. A bright spot in the very dull WWE existence lately. But I was really excited to see Edge and Roman, but now we got a triple threat match.
Right. Well, mentioning Heyman is something that the involvement of Paul Heyman is something that I always enjoy just as a member of the audience because he is always very good at focusing in on whoever the opponent of his man is and really in detail kind of taking that person apart and building the drama to where you want to see this contest. Now, at best, his attention is going to be divided. Is he going to focus on Daniel Bryan or Edge? And I would almost guess it's going to be Daniel Bryan. I do not know, but how do you feel about that? The nature of the triple threat causing a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Heyman's going to find some really creative way to tell that story and draw us all in like he always does. Heyman's been, Lesnar would not be at the same level he's at if it wasn't for Paul Heyman. Because when Brock first came back to WWE after being gone for, 10 years? 9-10 years, whatever it was. When he first came back, he didn't have Heyman with him, and he was having to talk for himself, and it was bad. Like, it was like embarrassingly, let's change the channel. It makes me cringe bad. But the minute they put Heyman with him, holy moly, it was knocked out of the park, right? And since then, that's been the shtick. Like, how many, like, you could probably count how many words Brock Lesnar has said on WWE television. It's less than 100 in the last 10 years. I would almost venture, So yeah, it's going to be harder, but I think if anyone can do it, if anyone can tell the story with it split between Edge and Daniel Bryan, I think Heyman could. All
right. I know our time is almost certainly running short at this point. There are other matches that we could talk about, and just let me know when we run up on time. One of them that felt kind of forced to me, or thrown together quickly, is we've seen there's now a match scheduled between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Obviously, 2 long-term friends/foes who know each other well, and I expect to have a great match. But it really felt like it was kind of put together rather quickly. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're just throwing things together at the last minute now to make sure guys have a card. Let's look at some of the other matches. We got a women's battle royal. We've got an Andre Memorial Battle Royal. We've got Riddle and Sheamus. We've got Dolph and Rude versus the Street Profits. Owens and Sammy. And then Asuka and Rhea Ripley, which is probably the only one of these ones I've said so far that I'm interested in. Cesaro and Seth and Sasha and Bianca. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's going to be some decent matches in there. And here's the thing, too. With it being 2 nights, they're going to have 7-8 matches on each night. And guys are going to be given a lot of time to work. You know what I mean? So some of these matches that, in my opinion, would only need 10 minutes to go out there and do their story and tell the story that they need to tell, they're going to have 15 minutes. They're going to have 20 minutes. They're going to have more time than they really should have. And we're going to have to see if that comes across, if they do well with it, or it just feels like it's dragged out. You know, and that's, matches are very organic as far as when should we go home. Like, when should this match end? You know, it needs to have a timing thing to it, and I'm interested to see how they do the timing. But like you said, We are way over time. This may be the longest episode, but we had a lot of matches to cover and things like that. For the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony, I thank you very much. And for my co-host, Mr. Wrestlemania, Mark Tipton, we thank you and goodbye.